Hello and welcome to another workshop. This is our Happy Techno Hour, sponsored by DevTech. I'm Erick Barreat, and I'm here with Soto. We have these workshops every Tuesday at 11:30 Central Time, and our mission and vision is to make the world a better place, one solution at a time. So, today, what are we talking about, Laura?
We are building some core concepts on AI power automation. Since the beginning of the year, I think we've done a great job into building foundation. The music stopped. Great. Now I can listen to my punching.
There you go.
If you were to go to the first slide, I could talk through our previous core playlist that we've created. We created some IT foundations, which were the purpose of these were for small business owners to have a practical guidance into actionable things to implement in their business. How to avoid common pitfalls and learn from mistakes is actually um, one thing that we all go through, right? We we always
Oh
receive good
yeah.
advice,
I remember my mistakes more than I remember my successes.
which is a great turning point for learning, right? Where we don't like keeping that too, but in terms of what you could do, you always would look for a professional to go through those things to mitigate, right? Because we're talking business and these would translate to a loss of money. So safeguard your business would be one of the things that is on our IT foundations videos, which was powered by
But it's all
mastering.
from an IT perspective, right? It's all technology.
Correct. Yeah,
There's so many. I mean, I think from a business perspective, everything could be a risk, right? The client is a risk itself.
marriage
Um,
is a risk.
everything. Breathing is a risk. You know,
Word it
drinking too
is.
much water is a risk too.
It is a risk too. Yes. Yeah.
Too much,
Too much of
not
everything. Yeah.
enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah.
The balance between those two and mastering the proper amount. It's actually what we went through in our series. I think this was back in March. We touched on some software development and ROI. How would you go by balance the speed and scalability? I remember understanding LLMs when we were looking at those boards. Those were fundamentals. I think learning AI has been, will continue to be, is it's a great challenge to have for small businesses to empower you. We were just practicing, and you literally just gave on that specific word that I think it empowers everything, and the impact that it has on us, right? The
What was the
workforce.
word?
Propulsion was it? Acceleration.
Acceleration. Yes.
Acceleration. Yeah, propulsion. Like physics. But no, I wanted to invite for the recap. I wanted to invite people to go to our YouTube, because there are a lot of playlists and shorts that you could, in which you could understand where do we come from, where is the experience, where is EVDevTech leading on solutions for their partners. And so today, what are we talking about today? It's some action. So what are our recommendations, right?
Doing. The only thing that matters is your intent and your actions behind that intent,
Correct. Yeah. So
right?
actionable recommendations for business owners. So a little hint on our word of the day is that we're all full of this. Uh,
What I mean, we do it unconsciously sometimes. What's the first thing you do when you wake up?
I say a word of intention,
Mm,
because I like praying. So that's kind of like the
mm,
very first thing. And then I move on those. I'm not sure whether you've done these exercises
amen.
to open your lymphatic. So
Like
you kind
breathing
of like
exercise?
do the prayer. Yeah. So you go through kind of like yoga. The very first thing is to do gratitude, definitely. Um,
Thank you, Lord, for
and
another day.
that's true. That's correct.
That's actually the
So,
first thing I say when I open my eyes.
mhm.
That's one of the first things I tell myself. Thank you, Lord, for another
For
opportunity
another
for
day.
another day.
That's correct. Yeah, so that's exactly what we're saying in terms of daily rituals. I don't think uh, from the user software developer perspective, we were just discussing, and this happens to a lot of people. They just don't know where am I failing, where is the system failing to me, and how can this be improved? So we got a word that emphasizes into what that is, because every accumulation of your clicks, your what do you do with your emails, where is approval taking so much time, and how do we go from planning to the action, right? So this happens every day. um, Also, internally we just developed and we want to share a universal data automation such, right? I don't want to say the word just yet, but is there a one size fits all
Are you
approach?
starting to get the hint? Do you know what it
Yeah,
is? What's the word of the day?
yeah. So I don't want to say just yet, but this is a unique approach that we go through solving challenge statements from our clients. So we go through a platform recommendation, something that has been used to solve clients' requests and problems, and an example of how does that look like. Because the example, I try to convey an example where everyone, like from logistics to e-commerce to just about any, even us, we are in that specific example. And things in this part of the media, I wanted to say things that you should not listen to. So we've heard this very radical statements. I call them. Coding is dead, SEO is dead, the end of software development. And I wanted to tap into that just because I also have a lot of respect for professionals. So, in the same type of respect, I know that we all want to do it all. We all want to be, uh, self-sufficient, the hero, the whatever you want to call it. But it
Your
is,
ego, pride.
thank you. That's actually very, very, yeah, that's actually it. That's it. That's the exact problem. That, that's the problem for for it all. So, what's the word?
What is it? Yeah, and I wanted before I reveal the word. I'm sorry. I know I keep holding it up. um, there's a lot of this as well. That's I'll talk about it later too. But coding is not dead. SEO is not dead. AI sold as a miracle. That's happening, right? Don't listen to that. These are tools, right? And I think if you go back to everything that we've talked about in the past couple of months, and you'll start to realize it's just a tool that keeps getting better. And so, really making sure that we're understanding how to use the tool is the most important thing. So, what's the word of the day?
The word of the day is workflow. And as a professional, with my engineering background, I think this is my favorite word
What's
of
the
them
workflow?
all.
What's the first thing we ask? Hey, we have a problem over here. What's the process? What's the workflow?
Yeah,
Where's
yeah,
the SOP so I can see how to reproduce it?
correct. Yeah. So I think from the use, I'm gonna go through the user perspective, right? Because I have been guided through professionals in the realm of software, including you, that has,
Uh-oh.
walk me through step-by-step processes of how to think and how to portray even ideas or in order to execute them, right? So, from the user perspective, it is super hard. I don't want to take out the complexity that each task has for each user because we all have different ways of thinking and our creativity level is different too. So again, each user is a world. Each world has to fit into a one universal workflow in order to for it to work and have harmony among other workforce. But the whole point is that I don't want to
Well, we
take
are
out the
already part
user.
of a workflow, right? How many hours are
Yeah,
in a day?
correct.
We're
That's
part of the
true.
Earth's workflow, right?
Yeah, we all
And it takes
have,
one
yeah,
revolution, 365 days. Um,
yeah, we all have the same amount of hours. That's true. So, I mean, that's a high
it's
level
an
way to put it.
abstraction. Yeah.
That you went very way ahead of me. Like, what's that? Yes.
Sorry.
So no worries. I think that completely makes sense because the user has the potentially we don't want to overwhelm users, and that's what a lot of workforce are is detrimental, right, to their mental health. And there are um, obviously a lot of consequential into society and our way of running our families, which are the core of our society. So
Mhm.
yes, if we want to go up to that level of we all have the same amount of hours, we all have the exact same kind of problem. I
I wouldn't say exact, but
I say like from the same box, family, like
oh, if
sort
you
of.
were to, if you were to categorize, yeah, I mean, we would have the same bucket, the same
Yeah,
categorizations, so buckets.
there
Yeah.
you go. Yeah. So yeah, so the same
Go pick up a
exact maybe
problem from
that
that bucket over there.
exactly. It's
I understand.
the yeah. So where do you begin? I mean, this is obviously the question that we all ask our users. Um, wow.
Yeah. So what does it look like, right? You always have something. It's kind of like a cause and effect paradox, light and day, right? Um, you have a challenge, you have a need.
hmm So this exercise I put in here, okay, like I like starting with the challenge statement. I think that I've tried to do this exercise for a while now. I have not done it in the past in this systematic way. But if I were to receive some feedback, I'm gonna nurture that feedback into a specific challenge, right? So as far as I know, I was doing something and the needs were not met, and then there's this challenge, right? So we all go through that, and sometimes a slow deliverable could be, so how come it's taking you too much time?
Yeah,
Is
it's
it
also a
important?
leadership trait as well.
Yes,
Because
yes,
now, if you identify the challenge or the problem, then you take it away from maybe if it's a person that owns the workflow. And so now a lot of folks that aren't understanding that everything's a process, everything's a workflow, are now you might be pointing at that employee because they're the ones that own the workflow and they're the ones that are the problem.
correct.
But if you take the workflow as an object outside of the person, right? Then you can point at the workflow rather than the person,
Mhm.
and you guys can both look at it and be like,
Perspective, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So definitely, that's exactly what that specific literal ideas where, like, if you were to have a slow and coordinated workflow, so what's actually the role and the priority of the task? Maybe I'm understanding this correctly, correct? So,
Right.
user needs to balance those out into what's going to be my input and output. And basically, this is our daily steps. This is your routine. How are you being asked for stuff? Is it too time consuming? This consumes too much? How would this ideal process look like? We were just discussing another process of how to make this better. And it literally just took us one creativity step and one other tool to get into an ideal process, right? And then we're just going to iterate over that, and that's actually how you operate. So you want to do this exercise on a daily basis, which is part of your routine, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're having the same problem, and I used shout out to John if you're listening, but he always would mention, um, if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you get the same result, it's like, what's the definition of insanity, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Well,
Mm-hmm.
now, see, that's not a catch-22. You're literally insane because you're not even
Mm-hmm.
aware that you're doing it, right? That you're doing the
Yeah.
same thing over and over again. So that's something we need to consider. Um,
Yeah. Your environment is it plays a big part of this though. I think they're from the perspective when you like this is a kind of like a statement question for you because you brought people to your team that you've managed to say, I'm gonna need help with this, and maybe I will, give the space for that person to create over those commands. So um, this happens to everyone. Like if you don't have that feedback from an exterior source, maybe you won't even, you know, like the boomer.
your eyes are fixed on you. You can only see out.
Correct.
It's
Yeah.
you need a mirror in front of you to see in, and how often are you actually looking in the mirror, right?
Yes.
And
So
it's in
it looks
self-reflecting.
wow. Yeah, that's the word. That's actually the word, the right word to express it because yes, and that's your workflow. Literally your workflow.
Oh,
So, oops.
sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So there are of it. I remember in this other conversation where we were just answering questions about where do you see um, the variables that you were to always be type of improving. And we've said it many times, but it's basically your time, right? Time translates to money, money translates to the number of transactions that you can achieve. And so, and the number of transactions could have errors. So, how do you design around that is basically what we do for customers.
Correct. Correct. Right. So it's always a challenge. There's many things that could be the challenge. These are just a few examples of what some of those challenges could be. So how would you design your operational system, right? Well, what's the challenge? There's high error rates. And I'm sorry for the background noise. My kids are
Someone's
going
having
insane.
fun.
Yeah. A lot of fun. So what pieces of data are worth monitoring, right?
Hmm.
Now, the challenge to that is, well, what's the lack of real-time visibility?
Hmm.
So someone's getting in trouble now. um, is anything else that we need to discuss here? Nope. We,
No, this
we
was
killed the
just an
horse.
intro. Yeah, we killed a horse here. This was just an intro of our take or our input into EV DevTech universal workflow. Um,
All right. So here's the
yeah.
here's how we get to those unmet needs and to those challenges, right?
Hmm.
The
Babe,
first step is the inputs.
Correct. So we were just evaluating this for every use case that we have implemented the workflow. And there's definitely, the improvement of it, but it compiles the entire structure of a workflow for automations. So tell us, Eric, which are the steps?
Yeah. So first step, like I've talked in the past, if you looked at our workshops, everything can go into 3 steps: inputs, process, output. Right. That's a whole workflow right there. If we go high level, a workflow has an input, it has a process, and it has an output. There might be feedback layers. The part of the output might be feedback layers back into the input and all that. But literally those three boxes. So we have a ingestion of data, right? What are the inputs? Why are they inputs? The validation of the logic, right? Why is that data important? What's the importance of those inputs? And that is a conversation, right? Because the person who owns the workflow or that created the workflow is the one that truly understands why those inputs are needed for that workflow.
Yep. And remember, we said something about the ingestion of data and what was the word? Enrichment.
Yes.
I think the user also knows what type of data is being input that is kind of that's useless, because it's not within how they want to have it, right? So was that validation logic kind of?
No, so yeah, that's part of the validation could be the enrichment of that data, right? So you're now enriching those inputs to understand what value those inputs provide, if they provide any, or are they just passed through because there's something that's needed downstream, right? Because an input can be an output from a previous workflow, and an output could be an input for the next workflow, right? And so if we, and I'm just talking about if we take a workflow as a little square, and that's all we're looking about. And so now we have the ingestion of that data. Now we need to make sure that we're validating that data. And when you zoom in into just one singular workflow, a lot of folks might tunnel vision and just think, oh, I don't need anything else.
Mhm.
But no one takes a look left and then look right? What's coming before and what's coming after? That's the validation of that logic too. That's enriching the data as to, well, hey, if I look all the way to the end, I have KPIs and metrics. If I just have the inputs and the logic to create the API integration, and then we create the workflows from that, and then we fix a couple of issues that we might have with just that data, and then we create some notifications to the user that, hey, the workflow is done or had a problem or it failed. And then we make sure that it's all secure. And then we just report on it, right? Hey, it's done. Yes, no. Boolean. Very simple. It's either finished or failed, and that's it, right? You only have two options. Well, does that tell you the whole story? Does that give you the value that you really need for that workflow? Do you know how much time that workflow saved you, who it saved you, who did it, who was supposed to act on it? So that's why the first part, having all of the enrichment of that data and the validation here is very important, because now once you get to the end and you understand the story that you're trying to tell or the workflow that is supposed to happen, and you get to the end, well, now you're able to now create a KPIs and the metrics to now reflect that story. Time saved, ROI. Well, Return on investment for what, right? And so what are we talking about? And so that's
Yeah,
important,
that's a
because if
good
you're,
take. Sorry.
go ahead.
So honestly, I don't know where I've read this, but there was a twist in which maybe there are sometimes not a return of an investment in the same terms that we've alwaysly translated it in our system, which literally means money. But then if you were to input, change the outcome to effort, you would have a return of the effort in which the effort becomes because
Less
the effort exactly so the effort has made stress and user is unmotivated and we're humans, right? So we're the input, and the effort has become more and more completely you know
mundane.
exactly. And then when you minimize that effort, then you get a return of effort, which is the lower the better. See, this is twisting the whole, like that. There's
Negative
no
effort.
way. Yeah. So negative effort means high achievement, which is, to me, kind of translates to what we I mean, at the end of the day, the system is made of humans. Humans are the input, and we are also, part of it. So, the way they portrayed it, that I thought, well, yeah, that makes sense. We want less effort, and that would be a bigger outcome.
Yeah, and so from a KPI perspective, it depends on the workflow too and what we're
Yes.
automating, right? Like this, we could really, if you look at the screen here, you can probably remove ingestion of data, the validation of the logic. You don't need, I mean, not everything requires an API integration, right? The whole purpose of the workflow is to do some form of automation. You don't need a user notification. Maybe they don't need to know. It's just done, right? Maybe there's no value in notifying anyone. We do need error handling because nothing is perfect, especially if it's done on a frequency, right? Internet goes down, what happens? A service goes down, what happens? And then security and compliance, of course, you definitely want to add on there to make sure that your data is not getting leaked or things like that. But at the end, you just want to make sure that you're able to measure that,
Yep.
because anything that you can measure, you can improve and optimize. And so that's the case here, right? It's if it's not, and the thing is, if it's measurable, it's most likely able to be automated.
Yep.
Because if you can observe it, you can measure it, then
Principles of industrial
automation.
revolution. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. It's the principles of automation as well. So that's a key here. So if you're looking to automate, that's a very key indicator as to if I need AI automation. I want AI automation in my workflows. Well, have you measured them? What's taking you the most amount of time? What's the process, right? Because not everything needs to be automated. Maybe just a few steps. And it also depends on your magnifying glass. How are you looking at? Like, you can look at your entire business as a workflow, right? From marketing, sales, operations, accounting, and then that's just the whole cycle. But then now if it's like, all right, well, you can optimize, you can create entire automations that connect these sections, or you can zoom in to marketing, or you can zoom in to sales. So, like I said, aperture, magnification, understanding of workflows, very important. Just because whether you like it or not, we're all part of this universe that works in a very strict way. You know, you have it's complicated. It can be complicated, but it also can be very simple, right? You have night and day. You have 24 hours. You have 1 hour. You have, and so now you have the measurements, right? Measurement is time. And so now that's what these automations are for, is to compress time, because the most valuable thing we have is time.
Precious.
Because we haven't figured out how to go back in time. There's a bunch of theories, but no one's actually done it. And then everybody says, well, if I go faster than the speed of light, I can go back in time. There's nothing that goes faster than the speed of light. And then also, what if you go to the speed of light? Well, you can only go as fast as the measurement of time anyways. So again, you're here going forward, you can't go back. And so all we're trying to do is compress as much energy into time, into as minimal amount of time as possible. That's what these automations are for, right? So now I can go in there and I can start working faster. Efficiency, the amount of effort before, I can now, and the effort's always going to be the same, right? You wake up, let's say, and this is variable because we're humans and we're variable. But if we wake up every single day and we say our batteries are full, when we open our eyes, our batteries are full. Some days we might wake up 80%. Other days we might wake up 99%. But that's effort, right? But we're always trying to do the same amount of effort every day.
Yeah.
Compression. All we're doing is trying to compress. That's all we're trying to do is, and how does automation helps us do that? Because now, instead of doing the tasks before it was automated to push things ahead, right? Well, hey, before I had to ingest the data, then I had to upload the data to the system that before it was automated. Then I had to handle any of the errors with my hand. I had to handle those errors with my hands. And then I had to manually notify the end users that, hey, your data is ready. And then the metrics, I had to create a report on top of that. But if we do this every single day, then here's the workflow.
Yes.
Create the automation.
A good way. Yeah. So I'm just gonna put into some words how does this translate to people, the user? It's always good to be looking at it from the outside, and this is where professionals come in. It's always good to question your workflow because you could be innovating a potential market within your industry. I did saw, for example, the website of the accounting services that I think it has evolved into what the user needed. The story of these people were literally about how can they improve the errors, the problems that they saw were happening in the accounting industry. So I saw that's a great perspective to tap into potential market and you are growing. So um, we have a platform recommendation. Um,
Yeah, so we're talking about automations. Well, how do you do it? What are the tools that we can use to automate workflows?
yeah. So I'm seeing this is where it gets just a little tricky now because um, even though this is as easy as it sounds, there is still a complexity added into these steps. So I wanted to just start by the n8n. The n8n, what was it? I did post it just so you know. There's the blogs of the n8n are online.
Yeah, so
We
n8n is just it's an AI automation platform that you can you don't have to know a lot of code. It's definitely helpful. You can do a lot more if you are a programmer that and also able to understand code. But essentially, you're able to create these automations and workflows where those things that you used to do manually, you can just now create the rules and create those nodes and those triggers, what triggers it, right? And what actions should happen after the triggers. You can also just do the conditions, right? The logic, the validation logic. If this, do this. If this, do that. If else, do else. And so it's a very great tool. There's a free version of it for community. Like there's a community version that is completely free that you could host it yourself. If you are not using if you're not using n8n, um, please scan the QR code now and start playing around with it. It is a very powerful tool. It can help you in your personal life as well. If there's things that you're using there, or even as an organizer, right? I like to think about it that you have these a basketball court. You know, you use your trash can as a basket. You know, and you're just trying to shoot stuff into it. I like to think of n8n like that, where if I create baskets and then I'm just shooting stuff as to, hey, here's my taxes, go put it where it needs to go. Here's this type of paperwork, go put it where it needs to go. You know, and so that way you don't have to think about or even worry about. I got to open up this folder. I got to open up Drive. I got to go to this folder, open up this file, and then get that, and then save it inside of that folder. Right? It's just here you go. Go take care of
yes.
it. Right? And this
So
also,
I love that within the complexity, there's also simplicity. The what you just said is if you got an idea or an action, I am going to literally input it to the n8n and it's going to take care of it because I have thought about what do I want to do that with that. So uh, there's just so much, right, that you could do. So much. That's where the
yeah, it could help you organize your emails. It could all help you automate some of the responses on the emails. Um, you can let's take a look, right? There's a whole community on it. Let me
mhm.
see here, where is it? Yeah, use cases right here, right? So I think we have some use cases that we're talking about later, but you can even have AI agents. You can have conditions. Is it a manager? Send it to where it needs to go. Security operations, right? On a new issue, extract IP and domains. Sales, right? Get reviews. K algorithm. customer insights, insights to Google Sheets. And so,
Yep.
yeah, it's powerful. Let's see here,
Mm-hmm.
what other integration. And it has so many things integrated into it, right? Google Sheets, you can
The
do
actions.
agents,
Mm-hmm.
yep. Gmail, Telegram, Gemini, Anthropic, Drive, Excel. You can put it in your Discord, databases. It can send emails,
Yep.
right?
There are like, I don't know, 400 tools. I
Oh, so
mean,
much. So much. I
mm-hmm.
mean, even if you, and again, if this is just out of the box, if you are needing to do something that is custom and you have some knowledge of coding, you can just build it yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? DeepL for translations, right? Automatically translate. Imagine that. You create an Instagram post and then now you want to automatically translate it into another language. Done.
Yep. There are so many ideas out there and so many use cases. There's also um how do I apply, how does this applies to me? So I just wanted to recall that the very first thing that popped into my mind when I knew about NAN was actually, what does that mean? What NAN? And so the guy literally responded that in a community statement saying, that's a weird question, but I'm gonna answer it. And so he calls the integration, he calls them nodes. And so the A is for nodes, a node animation. So it's just automation, right? In the terms of his nodes, because there are other tools too. So this just exists, and it just has helped a lot of people because it's super friendly to use. But and it also has this community tools that are very useful. And therefore, I thought, okay, so how does one idea translates to this? And if you go into the example that we uh, inputted, it literally just translates to how do you execute this? We have an example of ticketing. I
Yeah.
put ticketing only because a lot of businesses have ticketing. This is not only in our realm of business as IT solution partners, but also could be customer service and support. It could be retail marketing, or just like any type of business.
Absolutely. No, and this is an example, right? You have a trigger, right? Someone submits an issue, a ticket, right? Okay, that's creates the trigger. Now it's going to now get categorized according to that issue, right? So now that's that agent ability. Oh, I made that up. Agent ability.
Hmm.
So now it's going to scan through that ticket and its body and then categorize it. And so now this is the part where you mentioned, Laura, that it's variable here, right? It's going to have to do some form of calculation. Is it going to try to resolve or is it going to try to escalate? Well, how does it do that? How does it know how to do that? So you might need to introduce another agent or some form of support agent that now tries to resolve or escalate the ticket if required. And then at the end, right, some form of notification. And depending on which route it went, whether it's a recommendation of resolution or providing escalation analysis for the next person so that the next person doesn't have to read as much, right? So if I'm escalating this to a senior engineer, um, let's make sure that he has all the information he needs to be successful and not waste so much time. Again, right? We're trying to reduce effort, and so this is how you do it, right? This is how we get some time crunch and we get some time back, because at the end of the day is a lot of what we spend our time doing is asking questions or answering questions, right? So if we can say, hey, what's the depth of this question?
Yep.
So that here you go.
That's do you know that's if that is on the step of the resolution and escalation, that is literally your database. Like the user's database tell us where does that question die. So because that's where the complexity is, correct, right? So
Correct.
like if you were to solve any issues with n8n, you would have to be ready to question a lot and also get your answers straight so that it enters into a database and it literally translates into a resolution. Um, I think this is where it's complex, but it's also very simple because at the end of the day, if this were to be, for example, a field service type of ticketing, you would have to input the skill of your workers, availability hours, and there's certain variables that will always be very simple to identify. E-commerce, where is my order? So many things, but it's super interesting. And
Yeah,
again,
please scan the QR code.
yeah, again, I
Start
was
using
just
it.
about to say it. Yeah, let's play with that. So
The
on the
news.
media, yes. So this is where, obviously, from the perspective of the user, we want to always be respectful of the many hours that someone has spent into learning a tool, and this is no exception. So if you were to be, bombarded with those type of media, so coding is dead, software development is dead, and such. Um, this is where the word comes in. Coding isn't dead. Coding is just has become so easy to learn than it has ever been.
Yeah, and
Uh,
then there's so much problems happening now because since people are using AI to develop more and they haven't actually spent the time learning and having the experience of all the repercussions, all the failures that we've had to kind of learn from either experience or from leadership, right? There's literally um, mentors and bosses that have looked over your code and said, you have a security risk right here, right? Because
vulnerability.
you have a
Mhm.
vulnerability. And so if we're not doing that, we're really going to, I mean, we see it all the time. Oh, I had $100,000 Google Cloud bill, right? Because they exposed the API, and um, others are just going to see like, oh, look, free resources, right? And so they can take advantage of that. So we really need to be careful of that. Um, and sometimes new is not better, especially since um, the AI space is changing so fast that it really doesn't really make too much sense to be able to do all of the changes, right? Be careful of anybody that comes in with a new tool, and of course, right, vet it, right? Vet that it's going to provide you the value that you're looking for. So something definitely to take into consideration.
Mhm. That's right. So um, I'm always on the practical, I guess, thinking that um, there is an old way of thinking, and there will be new ways of thinking, always as we are, questioning everything. And that's okay. That will always be okay. I think that's part of what makes us human and beautiful at the same time and complex. And I remember this 10,000 hour rule that was first popularized by Malcolm Gladwell in his bestseller Outliers. He starts with the a specific assumption that I remember the story uh, of. of kids that joined the team of hockey in Canada were most successful when their birthday was on January, because the level of development that they had, because of their ability to enter school early, was completely outlying other people that were, it just made a notion that it was
The
declining, right?
progression.
That's correct. So the progression was less, and you just had hockey players. The most famous hockey players were basically born in January. So why is that? He generalizes obviously this idea, and is not a fix in the box type of thing. But the whole point is that practicing makes you a better professional or a player or just about any profession that you go yourself out to be the best. And this doesn't necessarily apply as a rule. Why? Because um, in the environmental I'm sorry, in the software development realm that we're speaking to, there are so many ways to get yourself accelerated. That's why we put that little rocket thing, that all practice isn't equal. The rule now focuses that the quantity of time practices, not the quality of the practice, and not all practice is equally helpful. So, so now there's that. This is where I'm just gonna end my dumping idea. It really is, even though it's so simple, it's yet very complex to build your own workflow. So this is where professionals come in, and you should take on the advice and security warnings of others that have developed and that have made the mistakes, and also know where your vulnerabilities could be.
Correct. And
Yeah,
that's,
just leave it.
yeah,
Yeah,
and AI is just supposed to accelerate all that, right? As being an accelerator to be able to get to the 10,000 hours faster, right?
correct.
So the time, the effort doesn't necessarily change, right? Because you still have to make the effort. If anything, you have to make more effort
To
to make
learning.
the change
Yeah,
than where you are, right? So you're always you're doing an exertion of energy to make a change, and AI and definitely in automation can help that. So that's the case there.
correct. Yep. So I guess that's our conclusion. Awareness brings it all together. Knowing where, how, well, we know what. We usually, I mean, a user perspective would know what and when. But then when you get to the how do I do this, you seek for help always.
Yeah,
Um, mm,
education, right? If you feel lost, you educate. That could be from a teacher or from book or something. But yeah,
yeah,
and that's, or you can schedule a call and we can help, we can coach you through it, right? And we can have a coaching call. And we can kind of talk through what does that mean? What does that look like for you and your organization? Um, but yeah, thank you guys so much. And right, so automation is a tool to do a time crunch to your business, right? This it's going to take effort to get there, but you're already doing the effort. So if you need to do more with less, it's time to automate.
correct.
All
So
right.
we'll see you next time with a demo. We're gonna show something live, and it would just be a great way to literally translate all of this presentation of today.
Yeah. So this is kind of just a precursor of what's to come next week. We'll have Albin on, and we'll show you what we've been working on and how we built it. Take care. Join us next time.
Goodbye.